The wind had a way of speaking out here, low, dragging, dry. Most days, it was the only voice I heard. That and Duke's paws clicking across the porch boards. He was my dog, part shepherd, part who knows what, loyal in a quiet way. Like me, he didn't ask for much anymore. My name's Bo Ramsey. Been ranching these hills for near 12 years, though the last 6, I mostly just existed on the land. The kind of existing where the sun comes up, you feed the cattle, mend the fence, then watch the sky change color until it's time to do it again. I didn't mind the silence. Got used to it, I suppose, after burying my wife and little girl. Grief does that. Turns the loudest things inside you into echoes. That evening started like any other. Sky bleeding gold into orange. Coyotes crying out near the ridge. I was on the porch with a coffee that had gone cold 2 hours back when Duke stiffened beside me. Ears up, nose twitching. I followed his gaze to the rise in the trail. Dust was coming, soft, not fast. A wagon, maybe? No, slower than that. Figures walking. I stood, wiped my hands on my jeans, and squinted into the glare. They came into view all at once. 10 of them. Girls. Young, worn down, with hair like ash and cheeks raw from wind. Their dresses were dirty, boots scuffed, hands gripping at each other's sleeves. The one in front walked straight as a fence post, eyes level with mine, even from 30 yards out. Red hair tied back, mouth set firm. She was barely 20, if that. I met them at the gate. Didn't open it. The redhead cleared her throat. "We don't mean trouble, sir." Her voice carried an Irish lilt, soft around the edges but firm at its core. The kind of voice you don't argue with, even if you try. "Didn't say you did," I replied. "But this ain't a boarding house." "No," she said. "It's a ranch. And we're not asking for much. Just a roof tonight. Maybe 2. We've had a long walk in longer months." The rest stood behind her, eyes wide and worn. One girl, couldn't have been older than 9, clung to her skirt like it was her last safe place. My throat tightened at that. "What happened?" I asked. "Our railman left us in Calico Junction. Said he'd come back with contracts. Never did. Locals didn't want Irish. Called us thieves, or worse. Drove us out with stones." She didn't blink. We followed the trail. Some folks said a rancher lived out this way. Quiet one. Didn't shoot at strangers. I looked down at Duke. He gave a soft whine, tail low. Damn dog had more heart than sense. "How about one bunkhouse?" I muttered. "It ain't pretty. Leaks when it storms. But it's dry tonight." "That'll do," she said quickly. I opened the gate. The girls filed through like shadows, one by one. The redhead waited until they all passed before she followed. I noticed she walked with a slight limp, like her right ankle was favoring her weight. Inside the yard, the youngest girl, barefoot and freckled, turned a slow circle, eyes wide at the pasture stretching beyond. "Is this all yours?" she asked. "Every fence you can see," I answered. The redhead gave me a long look. "Thank you, Mr. Bo. Just Bo. Branna," she said. "Branna O'Hare." We didn't shake hands, but something passed between us anyway. An understanding, maybe, or a warning. I showed them the bunkhouse. Told them there was well water out back and a potbelly stove that still worked if you kicked it right. I didn't offer dinner, but I saw them eyeing the cornbread cooling on my kitchen window. I brought it over 10 minutes later, said nothing, and left it on the stoop. Duke lay near the door that night, watching that bunkhouse like it held something sacred. I didn't sleep. Sat in my chair, boots on the table, hat low over my eyes, wondering what I'd just invited into my solitude. 10 girls with fire in their bones and dust on their boots. I told myself it was just one night. But when the wind shifted sometime past midnight, carrying the scent of horse sweat and campfire smoke from beyond the ridge, I knew better. Trouble was coming. And for the first time in 6 years, I didn't feel like hiding from it. By morning, the bunkhouse smelled of cinnamon and wood smoke, and for the first time in years, laughter bounced off the walls of my ranch. I didn't go near it. Not right away. Just listened from the porch as the girls moved about, sweeping, hammering loose boards, cooking something that reminded me of better times. Branna had them working like a crew. No whining, no dragging feet. They acted like this place mattered already. Duke watched them too, tail thudding whenever one passed close. Especially the little one, Clodagh, I heard her called. She had a missing front tooth and a way of talking to animals like they answered back. I caught her kneeling in the dust beside Duke, whispering something into his floppy ear. He looked more alert than he had in months. Brianna came up the steps around noon, carrying a chipped enamel cup. "Thought you might like some coffee, Bo," she said, holding it out. "It's strong enough to strip paint." I took it and nodded. "You all slept all right?" "Better than a church pew. Your stove needs new pipe, though. Smokes like a chimney with no roof." Her tone was matter-of-fact, not demanding. She had this way of speaking plain, without sounding ungrateful. I liked that more than I wanted to admit. We sat in silence for a minute. She didn't fidget, just sipped her own cup, eyes scanning the range like she belonged here. Finally, she said, "You lost someone." It wasn't a question. "My wife. My daughter." I kept my voice flat. 6 years back." She nodded once. I figured. No man keeps this much land in order without someone he's trying to forget. That hit deeper than I wanted it to. I didn't answer, and she didn't press. Just stood after a moment, said, "We'll have supper ready before dark. Hope you're hungry." Then she walked off, boots crunching softly on gravel. The girls didn't wait for permission to be useful. Nessa, the tomboy with a scar on her chin, patched a fence line I hadn't touched in months. Tierney, quiet but sharp-eyed, organized tools in the shed like she was born to ranching. Clodagh helped me water the animals and asked more questions than I had answers for. I caught myself smiling more than once. That scared me. Late that afternoon, Brianna and Maeve took Duke down to the stream. When they came back, Duke's paw was wrapped in a scrap of cloth, and Brianna had a smudge of blood on her sleeve. "Stepped on a thorn," she said simply. He didn't even yelp. The gratitude that swelled in me was sudden and strange. I nodded, clear my throat. "Thank you." Maeve, who'd barely spoken before, gave me a shy smile. Her eyes were soft, watery. "He's a good boy," she whispered. That evening, we ate together. First time I'd sat at a table with anyone in half a decade. They passed the bread like a ritual, shared stories of County Kerry and Donegal, their voices lifting over the table like song. I didn't speak much, but I listened. It felt like breathing again. After dinner, I walked the perimeter, just a habit. Stars were coming out. A breeze whispered through the grass. I stopped near the north fence and spotted something strange. A piece of paper nailed to a post. I pulled it off and read the rough handwriting scrawled across it. "They don't belong. Send them back before someone gets hurt." My jaw clenched. I scanned the darkness beyond the ridge. Nothing moved, but I knew eyes had been here. I walked back, crumpled the note, and tossed it into the fire pit. Brianna saw me do it. Didn't ask what it said, just nodded once like she already knew. I spoke before I meant to. "They stay, long as they want." Her expression didn't change, but her eyes softened. "That's good, because I think they already unpacked." I chuckled, a low thing that felt rusty coming out. She smiled, real and warm. Later, when I climbed into bed, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. 10 strangers had come to my land uninvited, and yet the place felt more like home tonight than it had in years. But that note gnawed at the edges of my peace. Someone out there didn't like that I'd opened my gate, and I had a feeling they weren't finished. By the end of the week, my ranch didn't sound like mine anymore. It sang, not loud, not wild, just steady like wind through prairie grass or boots across dry boards. The girls had rhythm, a way of turning chores into dance, dust into warmth. I didn't ask for it, but it settled in all the same. Brianna came to me with a list on the 5th morning. "The barn roof leaks, your well pump sticks, and your north fence is held up by hope and 2 rotten posts," she said, setting the paper on my table. "We can fix it, but we'll need more nails, oil, and proper boots. Half these girls are walking holes. You want to go into town?" I asked. She shrugged. "You'd better come too. Folks aren't always kind to our kind." Our kind. I almost asked what she meant, but the look in her eyes told me. Folks who've been discarded, blamed, or simply too different to be welcome. So I hitched the wagon for the first time in months and rode into Clay Hollow with Brianna, Nessa, and Clodagh seated beside me. The town was still as small as I remembered. One general store, a saloon leaning slightly left, and a church with a cracked bell. People stared the moment we pulled in. Brianna held her chin high. Nessa scanned the windows like she was ready for trouble. Clodagh just pointed at a dog tied to the rail outside the barber's and waved like they were cousins. Inside the store, the silence followed us. Mrs. Avery behind the counter gave me a tight smile. Bo Ramsey. It's been some time. Need boots, iron nails, pump oil, and lye soap, I said plainly. Also, a sack of barley and some fabric if you have it. Her eyes flicked toward the girls. Got yourself company. They're helping out on the ranch, I replied. Branna stepped forward. We'll pay fair. Not asking for charity. Mrs. Avery hesitated, then nodded. Money's money, I suppose. We loaded up the wagon without incident, though the eyes never stopped. As I climbed up to take the reins, the deputy came strolling out of the saloon. Rafe Collier. Wide shoulders, long memory, and the kind of smile that never reaches eyes. Bo, he drawled. Didn't take you for a boarding master. I'm not. He eyed Branna. You girls wander in from the rail camps? We wandered out of something worse, she said. Her voice was calm, but I saw her grip tighten on the wagon edge. Rafe chuckled. Well, don't go getting too cozy. Folks around here got short tempers. Wouldn't want to see you catch fire. I met his gaze square. They're under my roof, Rafe. You got a problem with that? He shrugged, stepped back. Just saying. We rode out slow, but the silence in the wagon was taut as wire. Clodagh leaned against me, resting her head on my arm like a child does when she knows who she can trust. Back at the ranch, the girls met us at the gate, lifting supplies from the wagon like ants around sugar. Branna lingered near me. That deputy's a man who stirs others into ugliness, she said. You know that, don't you? I do. Then you know they'll come. I'm counting on it. She looked at me long, then nodded. Then we'd best be ready. Over the next few days, we were. I showed Nessa how to loop wire and sharpen fence blades. Maeve learned how to spot tracks, her eyes better than mine when she trusted them. Tierney counted the horses every night. I rigged lanterns near the barn, hid a loaded rifle behind the feed sacks. Not because I wanted to fight, but because it'd be stupid not to expect one. One morning, Clodagh came running, barefoot and breathless. Mr. Bo, Maeve's gone. My heart kicked like a mule. We searched the bunkhouse, the barn, the fields. Tracks near the far gate told me she'd taken one of the Mares. Branna found a scrap of her shawl, snagged on the fence post. She must have gone into town, she whispered. I saddled up fast, took the rifle. Branna rode behind me without being asked. We found Maeve near the river road, bruised and shaking. She hadn't made it to town. Someone had cut her off, someone on horseback. She wouldn't say who, but her silence told me everything. She wasn't crying, just staring. Branna wrapped her shawl around the girl and held her tight the whole ride home. That night, I rode into Clay Hollow alone. Didn't raise a hand, didn't fire a shot, just walked into the saloon, found Rafe nursing whiskey, and said, loud enough for every ear in that dusty hole. Where your friends touch one of those girls again, I'll bury you so deep the buzzards will give up. He stood, but I didn't flinch, and after a long moment, he sat again. The saloon stayed quiet. When I got home, the fire was still burning. Branna was waiting by the porch. Well, she asked. They heard me. She looked up at me, really looked. So did I. Something shifted then. Not love, not yet, but trust. Solid as rock. I'd taken them in to help them. What I didn't expect was that they'd help me remember who I used to be, and who I might be again if I didn't let fear run the place. But Rafe wasn't the only man who'd laid claim to those girls, and the fire hadn't even started yet. Trouble didn't come at dawn or dusk like you'd expect. It came at midday when the sun was high and honest. I was in the barn checking a busted hinge when Duke started barking. Low, steady, the kind that wasn't for rabbits or hawks. I stepped outside and saw the dust trail coming from the east, where the land sloped and slow from the old stagecoach road. For riders, broad hats, stiff shoulders, the kind of men who thought the land owed them something just for crossing it. Branna stepped out of the bunkhouse, squinting. That's him, she said, voice flat. Madden Clay. He's the one who signed our papers. I'd heard the name. Madden Clay ran freight for the railway, cut corners, skipped pay, and left dozens of immigrants stranded across the territory. Mean with money, cruel with women. Now, he was coming to collect what he thought was his. They rode up slow, like they had all the time in the world. The man in front was tall, clean-shaven, eyes too sharp for his own good. He didn't bother with greetings. "You've got my girls," he said, voice like cracked glass. "They're not yours," I replied, "and they're not going anywhere." His smile was thin. "They signed contracts. You abandoned them." I was delayed. "Then you're too late." He looked past me, gaze sweeping the bunkhouse porch where the girls stood in a line, silent, firm, their faces carved from stone. "You think a few fences and a dog will stop what's owed?" I stepped closer. "Try me." He didn't flinch, but one of his men shifted in the saddle. A hand moved toward a rifle. I didn't wait. I raised mine from behind my leg, cocked it fast. "First one of you draws, I drop him where he sits." Madden held up a hand, signaling calm. "No need for theatrics. We're just here to settle terms." Branna stepped forward, standing beside me now. "You left us to starve," she said. "We belong to no man." He tilted his head, eyes narrowing. "And who speaks for you now?" "This tired rancher." "I speak for me," she said. "And so do the others." Clodagh stepped down off the porch and slipped her small hand into mine. I didn't plan that. She just did it. My fingers closed around hers before I could think. Madden Clay spat in the dirt. "This isn't over." "No," I said. "It's just beginning." They rode off without another word. But I knew they'd be back. Men like him don't let go without a fight. That night, I gathered the girls in the bunkhouse. We talked about plans, escape routes, where to run if it came to it. But they didn't want to run. Not anymore. They'd run enough. So we prepared. We built barriers from wagon parts and brushwood. We laid noise traps near the fence lines. Old cans, broken glass. Branna and Nessa practiced with slings and poles. I gave Tierney the shotgun, taught her how to load, fire, and breathe through it. Clodagh kept watch with Duke from the loft window. They came back 2 nights later, torches in hand. 5 men this time, not 4. Thought they'd take us in the dark. But they didn't count on the stampede. Branna had the idea. Cut the rope fence holding the longhorns, spook them with firelight and whistles. When the men reached the eastern edge of the corral, Tierney lit the brush pile. The cattle went wild, hooves pounding like thunder. Madden's men scattered. One was thrown clear from his saddle and landed hard. Another's horse bolted clear into the trees. I stood in their path with my rifle drawn, but I didn't fire. Didn't need to. The land defended itself that night. In the aftermath, the sheriff from Clay Hollow came with 2 deputies. Turns out Rafe Collier had turned witness. Said he'd seen enough to know who the real problem was. Maybe my words had rattled him, or maybe Branna's defiance had. Madden Clay was arrested on charges of trafficking and coercion. The law didn't always work out here, but sometimes the right person pushed it in the right direction. The girls stayed. Not all forever. Some went north to find cousins. Others moved into town and found work. But Branna stayed. So did Nessa. Tierney took over the kitchen and made it her own. And Clodagh, well, she followed me like a shadow. She rode fences with me, cleaned the tack room, named a new calf Mrs. Puffins for reasons I never quite understood. One night, weeks later, Branna and I sat on the porch, Duke curled between us, the stars thick above like spilled sugar. "You ever think it'd turn out like this?" she asked. "No," I said, "but I'm glad it did." She leaned back in the chair, boots crossed. "You saved us, Bo." I shook my head. "You brought life back to this place." I just opened the gate. She looked at me then, soft and long. "That's all we needed, and that's the truth of it." I gave them shelter for a night. They gave me something worth waking up for again. The ranch isn't silent anymore. It breathes. It laughs. And sometimes late at night, when the wind carries the sound just right, I swear I hear singing.